How are you?
How are you? Everything good?
Yeah,
My pleasure to meet you.
You're going to love the guys.
Yeah.
Oh, what's up? How are you?
Yeah, this is my first time meeting all three of them. So obviously people that I've seen on TV and admired, and now getting to work with them, I would definitely say my first impression is they're very funny and they make it easy to work with. Very fun too.
It's not like we're working. This is just fun and funny, and we just get to have a good time.
Way down the counter.
The most revealing part of that Capital One footage is not who Caitlin Clark is standing next to. It is how she carries herself. She is on set with Magic Johnson, Charles Barkley, and Samuel L. Jackson. Three people who have spent decades operating at the center of sports and entertainment. And Clark does not look like someone being invited into the room for the first time. She looks like someone who already understands she belongs there. That is what makes the clip matter. This was not a niche basketball ad. It was not a women's basketball campaign carved off to the side. Capital One dropped her straight into a March Madness commercial, shoulder to shoulder with names that represent mainstream sports culture at its highest level. That choice says a lot about where Clark sits right now. She is no longer being presented as a promising young star inside women's basketball. She is being presented as a sports star, period. And then you hear the way the veterans talk about her. Magic says working with her felt like play, not work. Barkley says she is just as into it as they are, that you can joke with her and she will fire right back. Those are not empty compliments from a commercial shoot. Those are tells. They are describing someone who does not need to be protected, coached through the moment, or introduced carefully. They are describing a peer. That matters because for years, women's basketball has been trying to produce a player who could move naturally inside the broader sports conversation without having to sand down their personality to fit. Clark's appeal was never just about points or logos or highlights. It was about translation. Her game translated, her swagger translated, her emotional honesty translated. Casual fans who did not normally follow women's basketball still felt like they knew exactly what they were watching. And that is why the timing of all this is so important. Her second WNBA season ended 4 months ago. Since then, she has been rehabbing, recovering, and mostly staying out of the spotlight. But the spotlight did not move on. Capital One did not wait to see whether she could recreate the magic before putting her in a national campaign with Magic Johnson. They did it now, while she is still between chapters, while she is still in the part of the story where athletes are usually being asked to prove the first season was real. That tells you her value is already bigger than a single stat line or a single stretch of games, and now the next test is arriving fast. The first Team USA practice footage out of Miami adds a second layer to this moment because it suggests something larger than a simple off-season run. While most of the attention around the league has been tied up in CBA tensions, labor questions, and league politics, Clark has been preparing for national team exhibition games that put her right back in front of a major. That's where this story gets interesting, because Team USA does not just look like a roster built in the old image. It looks like a roster assembled with an awareness of where the sport is heading. Clark, Paige Bueckers, Kelsey Plum, Sabrina Ionescu. Talent, obviously, but also visibility, recognition, pull. Players who can bring viewers in, sell the event, and make the games feel bigger than the floor itself. And whether anyone wants to admit it or not, that shift exists in the shadow of the last Olympics. When Clark was left off the Olympic roster, the reaction was immediate. It was not just disagreement over basketball merit. It became a bigger argument about whether the people in charge really understood what was happening around the sport. The backlash came from fans who felt the growth of women's basketball was no longer flowing through the old gatekeeping channels. It was moving through stars who could command attention at a scale the sport had rarely seen before. Clark became the center of that argument. What makes this upcoming stretch even more compelling is that she is not pretending otherwise. She has openly said she will probably be a little nervous because she has not played in a while. That stands out because public vulnerability is not usually part of the Caitlin Clark image. This is someone associated with deep threes in huge moments, with walking into the WNBA under a microscope and instantly becoming the league's biggest draw, all while taking the kind of physical punishment that would have rattled a lot of rookies. But honesty here actually strengthens the moment, because it connects directly to what her rookie year really was. Not the simplified version, the full version. She came in hot. The playmaking was there immediately. The passing numbers were historic. The shooting range changed defensive geometry the second she stepped onto the floor. Then the plantar fascia issue started to affect things. And instead of shutting it down, she kept going. Her efficiency dipped. The percentages fell. The conversation changed. Suddenly, the same machine that had spent months building her up started asking whether the hype had outrun the reality. That is the trap every breakout star eventually hits. The first phase is fascination. The second phase is doubt. But even with that injury hanging over half the season, she still put together a rookie year that would have been extraordinary under normal conditions. She led the league in assists. She finished top 10 in scoring. She set the single-season assist record. She became the fastest player to 100 made threes. And she did all of it while not physically being at her best. So when she says she feels better now than she did at the start of last season, that deserves attention. Not because athletes always say they feel great. They do. This is different. The point is not just that she is healthy again. The point is that the version people spent months reacting to may not have been the fully functioning version in the first place. If that is true, then these Team USA exhibitions are not just a return. They are a reveal. That is why the commercial footage and the basketball footage actually belong in the same conversation. On one side, you have Clark in a mainstream ad campaign with icons who clearly see her as comfortable in the room. On the other, you have Clark stepping back onto the floor after months away, with a chance to remind people what her game looks like when her body is not working against her. Same theme in both places. Bigger stage, bigger expectation, less patience for adjustment time, and she seems to understand exactly what that means. The easy move for a 24-year-old coming off an injury-plagued year would have been to disappear for a while. Rehab quietly, skip the extra attention, return when the WNBA season starts, and let the game speak for itself. Instead, Clark is stepping right back into nationally visible spaces before the season even begins. That is not accidental, that is a career choice. It suggests she is not thinking about her path in small terms. She is not acting like someone whose only goal is to become a very good WNBA player. She is behaving like someone trying to become a larger basketball figure, someone whose relevance stretches into advertising, television, international competition, and the broader culture around the sport. That is a much more ambitious lane, and it comes with much more risk, because there is a price for operating that high. When the platform gets this big, every performance starts carrying extra meaning. If she dominates in these exhibitions, the story becomes obvious. The injury mattered more than people realized. The break helped. The ceiling is even higher than the rookie season showed. If she looks rusty, that becomes a story too. 4 months off, timing issues, pressure, the gap between hype and execution. That is the deal when the attention around you is this intense. Nothing stays small. Clark seems aware of that, which is why her comments about nerves actually feel smart. She is not overselling. She is not promising fireworks. She is leaving room for reality. And in a strange way, that gives her more control over the narrative, not less. If she struggles early, she has already framed the context. If she shines, the performance lands even harder, because she did not spend the week talking like it was guaranteed. There is another layer here, and it is the one the league cannot avoid forever. Clark's value to women's basketball now extends beyond the WNBA's traditional structure. She can move ratings, she can land major endorsements, she can make herself relevant in spaces that do not depend on a league schedule. That creates tension, whether people like it or not. Because a league built on collective growth, shared progress, and salary structures is now dealing with a player whose individual draw may outpace the model designed to contain it. That does not mean she is bigger than the sport in some cartoonish way. It means the sport now has to decide what to do with a player who changes the economics of attention. And that is where the Team USA games matter beyond the box score. These are not just exhibitions. They are another test case for how women's basketball handles celebrity, marketability, and star-centered growth. Does USA basketball treat this like a normal team exercise, where Clark is simply another name in the rotation? Or do they recognize what millions of viewers already recognize, which is that she brings a level of curiosity and investment that changes the temperature of the event itself? Because that was the underlying issue with the Olympic backlash. It was never only about one roster decision. It was about whether the institutions around women's basketball were willing to accept that the center of gravity had shifted. Clark did not create all of women's basketball's progress. That would be a lazy oversimplification. But she did force the sport to confront a new reality. There are players who help a league, and then there are players who force a league to rethink how it presents itself, markets itself, and builds around public demand. Those are different categories. That is why the footage from a commercial set matters. That is why practice clips in Miami matter. That is why the next few games matter. This is not just about whether Caitlin Clark looks sharp after rehab. It is about whether the larger machine around women's basketball has caught up to what she represents. A player who can fit in with legends on a national ad set. A player who can carry a pro league's ratings as a rookie. A player whose return from injury is treated like an event before the season even starts. And now, we are about to see what happens when that player gets another stage. If she looks like the best version of herself, the pressure on everyone around her only increases. On Indiana to build faster. On USA Basketball to stop thinking so cautiously. On the WNBA to decide whether it is willing to structure its future around the kind of star power it has spent decades saying it wanted. If she struggles, that will not erase what already happened. But it will remind everyone that transcendent status is not granted in one burst. It has to be maintained in public over and over, with everyone waiting to see whether the shine holds. That is the real tension here. Not whether Clark can attract attention. She already can. Not whether she belongs on big stages. She already does. The question now is whether this next phase proves she can turn that attention into an even bigger level of control over the sport around her. Because at this point, the story is no longer about a rookie surprising people. It is about a star forcing institutions, brands, and entire leagues to adjust to her presence. And based on how comfortable she looked standing next to Magic, Barkley, and Samuel L. Jackson, she does not seem like someone waiting for permission. What makes this moment different is that Caitlin Clark is no longer fighting for attention. That part is over. She already changed the temperature of the sport. She already proved she can pull casual fans into the conversation. She already showed that one player can shift ratings, headlines, and the way brands and broadcasters think about women's basketball. Now it becomes something else. Now the question is whether the systems around her are ready for what they asked for. Because once a player becomes this big, you do not get to market the star and then act surprised when the star changes the balance of power. You do not get to celebrate the spotlight and then get uncomfortable when that spotlight starts exposing every weak spot around the league. That is why these next games matter more than people think. This is not just about rust. It is not just about rehab. It is not just about whether she looks sharp in a Team USA jersey. It is about whether the next chapter looks even bigger than the first one. And if it does, then the conversation around Caitlin Clark changes permanently. At that point, this stops being a superstar story. It stops being a hype story. It stops being a debate about whether she belongs. It becomes a story about what happens when a player grows faster than the structure around her. And that is where things get dangerous for everybody who still thinks this can be contained, managed, or delayed. Because if Caitlin comes back healthy, confident, and fully herself, then the pressure shifts to the league, to Team USA, and to everyone who has been slow to understand what kind of moment this really is. She is not asking for the stage anymore. She is the stage. And if you want the full breakdown, when this next chapter starts unfolding, keep it locked to Courtside Leaks. Because this story is not slowing down. It is just getting harder to ignore. We've got every angle covered, every leak, every backstage twist, every moment they won't show you. Hit like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share this video. Stay locked in with Courtside Leaks, your home for the truth behind the WNBA headlines.